1, 2, 3.
Microphone test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Microphone test. Microphone test. Brock, can you hear me up there? Brock, can you hear me? Are those speakers working? Are those speakers working? No? Microphone check, mic check. Are those speakers working up there? They are? Great, thank you. Microphone check, mic check.
The meeting of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, for September 28th, 2023 will come to order. President Richards will not be attending this meeting, so I will be presiding. I will begin by calling roll. Regent Dunkel? Here. Regent Barker?
Here.
Regent Crow?
Here.
Regent Rouse?
Here.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Here.
Regent Kramer?
Here.
Regent Reiswick?
Here.
Regent Bates is present. We have a quorum and the meeting can proceed. Are there items board members would like to remove from the consent agenda for a separate vote? Okay. A motion and a second are required to approve and receive items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Regent Dunkel made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Regent Reiswick seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Regent Reiswick?
Yes.
Regent Dunkel?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Yes.
Regent Barker?
Yes.
Regent Rouse?
Yes.
Regent Crow?
Yes.
Regent Kramer?
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. Okay. There is no board president report, so we'll start with the reports from the institution heads. I would now like to recognize each institution head to report on recent activities at each institution. We will begin with President Wilson.
Thank you. Oop, that's a little loud, isn't it? Thank you, President Pro Tem Bates and other members of the Board of Regents. We're happy to host this meeting and welcome. Oops, now I'm fading out. Okay, get a little closer. Is that okay? We're happy to host this meeting and really happy that you've had the opportunity to meet with so many students. I think that's a highlight of any visit to a campus, and I'm grateful that you've taken the time to do that. I'm going to give a few updates and then focus mostly on our state appropriation request for, whoops, no, it's not up there. What? There it is. Okay, thank you. Few updates, except I want the previous one. Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Few updates here at the university, and then, as I said, focus on our state appropriation request. As I hope you've read and heard about, we have a very large incoming class. We're really excited. It's the 4th largest incoming class in the history of the University of Iowa. And we continue to be really proud that 1 in 5 are first in family to go to college among this group. They are excited to be here, and they've been very active, and they're getting into all kinds of clubs and getting situated into their majors. I think one of the things I'm also proud about is that our transfer numbers are up this year, which is really important as we think about pathways to 4-year degrees, up 114 students. So our total is 30,042 students. That doesn't include our postdocs and our medical residencies, so we even have more people here than that, but we have a robust population of students, and our steady sort of 5-year plan is to get to about 33,000. I think I've said this to many of you. Our goal is not to grow wildly or to really increase enrollments dramatically. We like the fact that we're a Big Ten university with a small community feel, and that number for us situates at around 33,000. The other thing I want to emphasize is that we are increasingly being known as a place where we are very accessible. We admit a higher percentage of than most of our peer groups. We're more affordable than most of our peers, and yet we provide world-class education here. So it's a really nice place to be, and we're emphasizing that to our students quite a bit and to their parents. Okay, thanks, Erica. Another really important metric that we follow all the time, and it's in our strategic plan, as you know, is our first-year retention rate, which is a strong predictor of graduation rates. And I want to just highlight that we're making really good progress on this metric. So we set out a 5-year goal of getting to 90%. When we started the strategic plan, we were at 88%. It may seem like a 2% change is not very much, but when you have hundreds of students to move that percentage requires a lot of work. The good news is this fall we just reached 89.3%. So we're making steady progress, and I think we'll get to 90% before the 5 years is up. Which is great. Now, how are we doing this? It's the initiatives that we've started, like the First Gen Hawks program, started small, it's growing. We're talking to many of our donors and friends about growing it to a bigger size, roughly 300 students, and having a 2-year program rather than a 1-year program. And we also benefit from programs like Learning at Iowa, which we talked about with you all a couple of meetings ago. This is where we're really helping students think about how to learn. It's interesting that they don't actually have a lot of exposure to that before college, but really thinking about meta memory skills and a mindset for learning, and teaching them how to learn in addition to what to learn. And that's been a really big, important program, and it's usually focused on gen ed classes, those thorny, tough intro classes where students need a lot of help. So we think those kinds of programs are making a big difference, and we have data to show it. So now the question is, can we keep scaling up, and can we get, I would say, over 90% actually. So, okay, next slide. The U.S. News and World Report rankings came out. You know that we don't pander to the rankings, but when they're good, we talk about them. We're excited about a couple of aspects of the rankings this year. We are now the #1 public undergraduate nursing program. They went from 9 to 4 overall, and they're the #1 among the publics, so that's great news. And you all know that we are growing our nursing program, so that's dovetails nicely with the strong reputation and metrics that are associated with nursing. We are also continue to be the #1 public university for writing across the disciplines, and we are the only public institution in the top 20 for U.S. News for that metric, or for that ranking. And we're tied again with Yale, so they dropped a little bit. We did too. We're now #5 from 2, but for us it's the #1 public, and we're still the only public in the top 20. So that's a really important part of how we talk about what the value of the University of Iowa is. No matter what you study, we're going to help you learn writing and communication skills and help you be a leader in any discipline. So this is not just about the Writers' Workshop. We have writing centers in every single college, and even the law school calls itself the Writing Law School. So it's a really important part of what we do and what we promise our students when they come here. I just want to mention briefly, I was telling Regent Reiswick this story last night, so he is going to hear it twice, but we just had a group of students over to the house the other night for the Provost Awards, and I met a young woman who is here from Utah, and I said, well, why are you here? And she said, well, you're the best writing university in the country. And I said, well, how did you know that? She said, I did my research. And I said, that's fabulous. Did it help to come and visit? And she said, oh, I never stepped foot on the campus until I moved here. This was just my, I knew right away that this is where I wanted to come. And now she's studying creative writing as an undergraduate major and studying Chinese. And she's one of our social media influencers already. So here and I asked her if she was homesick, and she said, I miss my dog. So she's having a great time here, and it's just an example of the kind of leverage and impact we're having when we think about writing and communication across the disciplines. You also probably know that we dropped a bit in the overall ranking. The U.S. News completely changed its formulas this year, got rid of things like how many small classes you have and whether your faculty have terminal degrees, added some other things, and we dropped 10 spots. We haven't changed from last year, so it's a little frustrating when we have rankings that are formulaic, and they're a business, and they change from year to year in ways that we have little control over. So we remind people we're still the same wonderful Big Ten research-intensive university that we were last year. Okay, enough on rankings. I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of Prop and remind us all that last year we asked for some support to grow the College of Nursing. We were thrilled that the legislature came forward with support for that, a $2.8 million investment. We promised that we would grow the number of students in the College of Nursing, 48 students over 4 years. We would graduate more, increase the class size. And I'm really grateful to the College of Nursing for grabbing hold of this plan and really being aggressive. They hired 10 faculty in 1 year, and they've enrolled an additional 14 students this year over what we promised. We promised that we would do 12. So we're already 2 over. If you multiply that times 4, we'll robustly graduate more students than we even promised. So we're really excited about that funding. I wanted to share that with you to show that when we get the kind of support we're requesting, we actually can do things, and we can do them even in a year. So kudos to the College of Nursing. So now what about this next state appropriation request? We've talked with several of you about this request. The request is for $10 million a year. We'd like to have a 5-year commitment from the state so that we can establish what we are calling right now a rural health care partnership with the state. The goal really is to grow the healthcare workforce, to expand delivery of health care across the state, and to bump up the ability to do screenings and telehealth and community providers out in the various parts of the state of Iowa. We simply can't bring everybody here, and we don't want to. So the goal really is to keep health care as local as possible and improve health care outcomes across the state. So let me be a little more specific. The 3 areas that are in the plan are mental health, maternal health and primary care, and substance abuse. So I'll hit on each of those 3 very briefly. Mental health. The biggest chunk of the $10 million is in the mental health area, and it makes sense. 42% of adults in Iowa have reported symptoms of anxiety and depression in the recent surveys, 42%. And suicide is the #1 cause of death in Iowa for adults aged 25 to 39. So we all know mental health is a very serious concern. I won't even talk about younger people. We will in a minute. But these are startling statistics, and 89 of the 99 counties in the state of Iowa have been designated as health professional shortage areas in the arena of mental health. So 89 of the 99 counties. How can we fix this? Well, we're requesting $4.1 million to do a variety of things. Graduate more advanced registered nurse practitioners. These are folks that will be nested out into the communities and be frontline healthcare workers. We want to graduate more clinical mental health counselors, and significant numbers there that we could do with this funding. And we'd like to also grow the outreach of the Scanlon Center for School Mental Health. This is in the College of Education. They're doing training for teachers. They're going out to different school districts to help when there's a mental health crisis. We'd like to be able to reach 80% of the K through 12 schools each year with the additional funding that we're requesting. The second area is maternal health and primary care. Here we're requesting $3.75 million of that $10 million. Let me tell you that this is another area that we know is critical for Iowa. 52 of Iowa's 99 counties have been designated as health professional shortage areas for primary care, so roughly half of our counties. And 31 counties have lost their birthing centers. So we know there's dire need across the state for added help in maternal health and primary care. If we were to receive this funding, we would be able to train 20 new primary care advanced registered nurse practitioners each year. We'd be able to provide training for statewide for 150 providers and nurses for pregnancy-related emergencies. So getting people out into the communities so that they can be on the front lines to know when a pregnancy is high risk, when there's a possibility of an emergency. And then last but not least, training local healthcare providers on how to triage, stabilize, and transfer those patients that need to go perhaps here or other places where there's a higher level of care for those extreme pregnancy emergencies. So that's maternal health and primary care. And last but not least, substance abuse. Just to help you think about that as an issue in Iowa, in the past 3 years, Iowa has experienced a 30% increase in deaths associated with alcohol, opioid, and methamphetamine issues. So this is a serious problem in the state, and particularly in rural communities. If we were to receive funding here, we would create an addiction and recovery collaborative that would work with local areas, county jails, local hospitals, addiction treatment centers. We would have a dashboard. We would provide statewide training and education on the treatment for addictions and provide more teleconsultation with local providers for complex care cases, of which there are many. So the goal here would be to support the recovery of 3,000 Iowans per year. The total of all these numbers, if you add them up, is $10 million, and we like to do this every year for 5 years. We think we can really make a dent in the rural health care issues in the state. You might ask, why us, why now? And I would say a couple of things. First, you know that Iowa has some health care issues. We have an aging population, we have rural communities that have no or limited health care options. And we're really poised, we feel, UIHC and the entire university is poised to help. We're the only academic medical center in the state. Many other states have multiple academic healthcare systems that actually can sort of get in each other's way, so it's easy to partner with us. We can be a great and efficient and central partner in all of this. We're nationally known for multiple subspecialties that are related to these three issues. We're fiscally stable. You can't say that about every academic healthcare system. VP Jameson reminds us of that all the time, coming from a different place. And in the last year, we've seen that we're the second most trusted healthcare brand in the U.S., according to surveys. So, and you heard a lot yesterday about the other things we can do. We feel like we're ready, we're poised. With the state as a partner, we can really make a difference. And our goal is to not get rid of local healthcare. It's to bolster the impact and effectiveness of it and really make a network of strong providers, with Iowa City being a place that you come if it's really too complex for local situations. So thank you all. I'm happy to answer any questions if you
Are
have
there any
any.
questions, or? Regent Barker?
Thanks. We hear a lot about demographic cliff, but you're talking about an enrollment increase of 10% from 30 to 33. Is that realistic?
It is realistic, and actually, even if we don't grow, we have 2 years during COVID that are a little lower, and once those classes graduate, we'll get to 33 automatically. So it's not really our goal is about 5,000 new students each year. So this will just happen naturally, frankly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, President Wilson. Very
Thank
good
you.
report.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I'd now like to recognize President Wintersteen. Are you next? Okay. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here and present about Iowa State University. I'm going to do a short update and then talk about our legislative appropriation. Let's see. So we were so pleased this year to welcome 30,177 students to Iowa State University. We continue to see robust enrollment in our first year enrollment at Iowa State. It's climbed 16% since the fall of 2020, and that's a good sign, right? We're recruiting new customers to Iowa State University. And we're not only recruiting new customers, new students, but we're retaining them at a high rate. Our one-year retention rate is 87.5%. That's 12.5% points higher than the national average for four-year public universities. And we're also graduating students faster than ever before. 56.2% of our students graduate in 4 years or less. And our overall time to degree is at a historic low of 4.17 years. Iowa State graduates are in high demand. 95.5% of our graduates have started their career or are continuing their education within 6 months of getting their bachelor's degrees. And oftentimes, they have jobs 7 months before they graduate from Iowa State University. So great success at Iowa State for our students. As the state's only land-grant university, one of our primary functions is to meet the state's workforce needs. We continue to innovate our programs and our curriculum to ensure that our students are career ready. We appreciate the state's $2.8 million investment from the Iowa legislature for the current fiscal year to support our STEM workforce and innovation initiative. And these funds have allowed us to expand new and high-demand programs by making 12 strategic faculty and staff hires in several areas. And I'll mention just a few that you can see here on the slide. These are areas that clearly are cutting edge or critical needs to meet challenges and opportunities facing Iowa and the nation. And you can see those listed there. Artificial intelligence is one of those areas that I'd like to just briefly mention. It's been in the news this whole year. Recently, I asked Provost Wickert, well, how many faculty do we currently have working in this area? And he said over 250 faculty at Iowa State do some work in AI, but yet there's need for more in this important area tied to computer science, tied to computer science and engineering. So we're going to continue to grow in that area and all these areas listed there. So 12 strategic hires. We also launched our new biomedical engineering major, and the demand for this program has exceeded expectation. We more than doubled our first year projection with 53 students enrolled in the program this fall. So we're leveraging these new funds also to expand research and education in our next generation battery technology work. We know that batteries are central to future electric grids, transportation, and portable technology. This initiative will build on our faculty expertise in engineering, chemistry, and physics to advance battery fabrication and testing at scale to help meet growing needs, both in the government, industry, and our own lives. I hope sometime you'll come and visit the work that we do in battery development at Iowa State University and meet Dr. Steve Martin. I think you'll be blown away by seeing what he would tell you about your cell phones that you carry around every day and what they're going to look like in the future from the work that's being done in the advancement of batteries. As we look ahead to fiscal year 25, we want to build on our momentum of STEM workforce and innovation initiative. We're requesting a continuation of the fiscal year 24 funding amount of $2.8 million and an additional $10 million to expand this program. And there are three components of this request. First, we plan to expand programs that directly align with Iowa's Hot 50 jobs that are projecting strong growth into 2028 and other STEM fields that are core strengths at Iowa State University. And these include those that are listed here. And you can see them. They range from, of course, the work we do in veterinary medicine, architecture, engineering, finance, marketing, digital ag, cybersecurity, and computer science and artificial intelligence, healthcare management, STEM teacher preparation. So the opportunities and the need are clearly there, clearly defined in many different, by many different groups, and we want to acknowledge those, see the connection to Iowa State University, and build on the work we did with the first appropriation last year from the legislature. Next, we want to work to drive economic growth and opportunities in Iowa's manufacturing industry. And these new investments will allow Iowa State to make advancements in biomanufacturing and efforts to onshore manufacturing jobs in Iowa, helping firms to source, market, and deliver their products around the world. As I've been traveling around the state and visiting small businesses, it's clear to me that we play a very key role in working with these small businesses. We often work with very large companies at our research park or through research agreements at Iowa State, but these small manufacturing companies around rural Iowa truly are the backbone of Iowa's economy, and we play a special role through CERAS, through our outreach from the research park, and we think additional funding here could really be a game changer. We think there are opportunities to further support our students in having internships with small businesses that typically can't afford to pay an intern to come in and be with their business. And if we could have the opportunity to support them in that way, it would be another way to keep students that graduate from Iowa State in rural Iowa. We also think that while we have the ISU Digital Lab on campus at the research park with all the new technologies for manufacturing, having a mobile lab to take out and to show to small manufacturing companies would be a game changer for them. They oftentimes don't have the time or understanding of what it would be like to come to the research park and see these technologies. So a different level of outreach to small businesses that are engaged in manufacturing in the state, we think would make a difference and help grow and give new opportunities to manufacturing in Iowa. And third, we would like to expand and support the efforts of rural vitality so that communities are more competitive and attractive in retaining workforce talents. Again, when we go out in the state and visit with communities, and I had the opportunity to do that this week with Greta Rouse in Emmitsburg, Iowa, you see what leaders are doing to develop collaborative programs to make sure their communities truly retain the vitality that is needed to grow and to be sustainable. And we believe that Iowa State University Extension plays a key role in helping communities do that and are well positioned to continue that work and to grow that work so that there is greater access to childcare, healthcare, transportation, housing, and economic development, and that an investment here would pay a return again to rural Iowa. So that you can see our focus is about workforce, manufacturing, and rural communities. And that's what our request to the Iowa legislature is this year, for an additional $10 million, all aligned, again, around STEM workforce and innovation with a focus tied back to rural Iowa. I'd like to go on, though, and talk a little bit about a $4.5 million increase to our general operation appropriation. This is something that we have talked about in the past and said that it would be appropriate for the state to also invest in this area. These funds will help Iowa State to remain competitive, to ensure the success of our students, and allow us to continue to drive economic impact across the state. And you can see the items that we've listed here: competitive student financial aid, student educational support services, competitive compensation for our employees, expanding innovation and entrepreneurship. And I have to stop for a minute and just mention that we did win Entrepreneurial University of the Year for the Americas. That was a great award to be recognized, to support online programs, and to address financial challenges that we continue to experience from inflation that was so high last year. So this is the second part of our request in addition to the STEM workforce and innovation, $10 million. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is any, Regent Lindenmeyer?
President Wintersteen, I'd be interested if you can provide more detail on your community vitality
Certainly.
effort with specific, coming from a rural area. I know that childcare and healthcare and all, I think you've hit all the hot buttons, but can you be specific about efforts that you have for the planning of that $10 million?
So the $10 million would be across the three initiatives that I talked about in terms of, first of all, continued investment in the programs related to STEM, to manufacturing, and then to the rural vitality areas that we see Extension leading. And we have a new vice president, Jason Henderson, that started back in April. And Jason Henderson would lead an effort with the communities across the state to talk about what would be the way that those funds would be invested. He's in the process, actually, of developing the new strategic plan for Extension, and that would be the way that those funds would then be delivered.
Any other questions or comments? Regent Barker?
Thanks. The number that really stood out to me was that 95.5% employed. I mean, when you think about students who just may be unemployed because of a job that doesn't work out, or students who take a gap year, well, that's a very high number. And I think it's also important to note that most of those employed students are doing very well. Rachel and Jason have helped me to understand some of the census data that shows that a lot of your students are getting very good salaries when they come out. How does that number compare to other universities and to the past at Iowa State?
To the past, I would say that Iowa State University has had a high number for many, many years. Of course, we can go back decades to the farm crisis and see a much different story. So I think when there have been recessions back to 2008, and we would see dips in that number that would be pretty significant. But when the country's not experiencing a recession or a crisis like the farm crisis, I think we've done pretty well historically. Comparison to other states might be best answered by a report that was done by an institute whose name I can't recall right at this moment, Regent Barker, but they did an analysis of higher education in every state in the United States and looked at return on investment of higher education. And that was return on investment for the tuition paid, what was the return on investment to the student. And Iowa, for all of higher education, not just Iowa State, was ranked number 3 in the nation. And so I think that is a good answer to your question. Now I have to brag for a moment and say that mechanical engineering at Iowa State was lifted up as one of the examples where a great return was shown for students who chose to major in that degree. So number 3 in the nation. That's a pretty good number. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, President Wintersteen. Very good report.
Thank you very much.
President Nook?
Well, thank you. As you can tell, I'm always eager to talk about the University of Northern Iowa. But thank you again for the opportunity to be here and do exactly that, share some of what's happening at the University of Northern Iowa and talk about our state appropriation request. I'd like to open my remarks by updating the Regents and others on our enrollment and some of our student success markers. The university did have an enrollment increase this year of about 0.8%. We're at just over 9,000 students at 9,021. But from where I sit, more importantly, our academic markers have really increased nicely. And the four-year graduation rate crossed 50%. It's 51.2%. Excuse me, 51.3%, up over 4 percentage points from last year. Our four-year graduation rate has been growing since about 2000, and it's been pretty steady, but it's growing at about 0.8 percentage point per year. To put that 51.3% four-year graduation rate into perspective, the average for institutions like us, regional comprehensives nationally, is about 30%. So it's an incredible number. There are institutions that are like us whose six-year graduation rate doesn't reach 50%, and our four-year graduation rate is there. And that is a record for us. Last year was a record as well, and we're 4 percentage points above that. The five-year graduation rate hit 65.5%. That's the second highest we've ever had, and again, runs about 20 percentage points above other institutions like us. Six-year graduation rate isn't much different than 5 at 68%. Very few of our students take more than 5 years to graduate. We don't often talk about it, but about 24% of our students transfer to another institution, many of them completing at those other institutions. So when you look at what I call our success rate, it's about 90%, a little over 90% of our students either graduate or have transferred to another institution and will complete there. So very few of our students are leaving higher education and not continuing their education. One of the statistics that really is kind of mind-boggling is that 9% of our students graduate in 3 years. We're now starting to track a 2-year graduation rate as well, because 11 of our students last year graduated in 2 years, which means just a little under 1%, which when you think of when I was a student, graduating in 3 years was unheard of. Graduating in 2 wasn't even possible. But for various reasons, that is able to happen. Students are able to do that now. I want to transition and talk a little bit about the funding request that we have for the state. And it's divided into three parts: $5.8 million to provide support for our general operations, $2.5 million to grow the teacher pipeline in this state and meet a critical need within our state, and $500,000 for grants to support students with financial need within the UNI at Iowa Community Colleges program. There we go. Our first request, and really our most important request, is for $5.8 million in support to the university's operations so that we can hold tuition flat for a year and develop some differentiation in our tuition relative to other public institutions in the state. In every state around the country, and especially those in the upper Midwest, students in those states have three different avenues to get their education, and each of those avenues comes at a different price point. Community colleges, regional comprehensive universities, and then the research-intensive institutions in that state. When you look at the states around Iowa, what you find is that on average, the difference in tuition between the public research institutions and the regional comprehensive public institutions, it's about $3,500. In 2017, that difference was $88 here in the state of Iowa. We've grown that to just a little over $1,000 now. We'd like to continue to be able to do that. It will certainly help with our enrollment trends, but it will more importantly help the people of Iowa have choices in what they would like to pay and the type of education that they'd like to receive. So this is a major request for us to continue the work that we've done to differentiate tuition and provide the people of Iowa with different avenues for the educational opportunities that they choose to engage in. The second request is to support Educators for Iowa. A year ago, the state presented the University of Northern Iowa with $1.5 million to undertake this, and we used all of those dollars to directly support students in the form of scholarships. One of the things that we'd like to do is expand that program in particular to support students during their student teaching activities. As I mentioned a year ago, we know that one of the very first internship opportunities for college students really was student teaching, going back to the beginning of teacher preparation in this state. It has always been an unpaid internship, and almost all of our other opportunities for internships are paid. So finding some support to be able to help these students offset some of the additional costs of undertaking this internship and pay them for some of the work that they're doing as student teachers, as interns in our education system, is what we'd like to be able to do with the additional dollars. These really are for students that come from the state of Iowa and that student teach in the state of Iowa and are intending to go to work in the state of Iowa as well. Our third request is a critical request to support students in UNI at Iowa Community Colleges. This program started just a couple of years ago, and we were expecting at this time to have about 200 students in the program. Last year, we had 252 students in the program, and we were already well ahead of where we expected to be. This year, we have 423 students in the program. We've had growth of right at 68% year to year in this program. It's a very, very popular program. When you look at a map that shows you where the students are located that are taking this program, it just completely blankets the entire state. Students who have graduated from each of our Iowa community colleges are engaged in this program and completing baccalaureate degrees through the University of Northern Iowa. We do have 4 important partners where we have individuals working directly on those campuses, not only to recruit students, but more importantly, to support those students in helping them find tutors, in helping them engage instructors, helping them build groups that they can study with, really providing all the support systems that they'd find if they were students on our campus. These dollars that we're requesting, the $500,000, is to support students with financial need in this program. We were very, very fortunate. It's one of the reasons that we have the enrollments that we do, that a few years ago, the governor made available to us $4.167 million in federal funds. Those dollars have been used for students who have financial need to be able to offset the cost of a UNI education relative to that of a community college education. What we know is that all of these students are place-bound. There's no opportunity for them to leave their jobs, to leave their families, to uproot and come to one of the Regent institutions. So how can we support them in what they're doing? They have figured out how to successfully get a 2-year degree at a community college. Part of that is being able to pay for it. These grants have helped these students with financial need be able to retain their jobs, be able to support their families, be able to stay with their families, and complete an education without incurring additional debt. So unfortunately, in December of 2024, those funds, in essence, run out. The funds, while available to us and can be paid out through 26, we can't add new students onto those funds after December of 24. We have to have them, quote unquote, encumbered. So in the spring of 25, any new student that enters, we don't have funds to be able to continue this grant program and support students of need in the UNI at Iowa Community Colleges. So what we're asking for, the $500,000, would be able to provide those grants to students of need just for the spring semester of 2025. This is because the budget that we're requesting is the FY25 budget, and so we need money for that spring semester, or we won't be able to add new students to this program who have financial need and help them with the barrier with this financial assistance. So that is our final request within the state appropriation general fund dollars. It's easy to look at these and talk about the numbers, but I think it's more important to look at lives changed. I should have been moving this along. There we go. I want to talk about and introduce you to three of our, two alums and a current student, Amy Phillips, Landon Gator, and Amy Heggendorm. Amy Phillips is really much like many of our alums of all of our institutions. She received a degree from two of the Regent institutions. Her undergraduate degree is from Iowa State University, and her master's degree is from the University of Northern Iowa. Amy is a kindergarten teacher at Marshalltown, and she is one of the 5 finalists for Teacher of the Year this past year. Amy is just a remarkable educator at the kindergarten level, and she talks highly about the students that she has and the colleagues that she gets to work with. Amy grew up in Hudson, Iowa, which is just a few miles south of our campus. And as she's started to work at Marshalltown, what she recognized is that the diversity of that community was very different than the one that she grew up in. Many of her students' native language is not English. It might be Spanish. More likely is an Eastern European language, whether it's Ukrainian or Serbian, Albanian, many different languages in the area. And it means that she has some special preparation to do for each of her classes to be able to help each student understand the lessons that are there, make the adjustments to life in an Iowa classroom. And Amy was recognized by her principal and by her mentor for the work that she's done to help these students feel included, to feel a part of, to feel welcome in her classroom, in this school system, and especially at kindergarten. It's so important to do that and help them make that transition very, very early. We're very proud of the work that Amy has done to help these students in their very first steps in their education. Landon Gator grew up in Independence, Iowa, and graduated from the University of Northern Iowa in 2011 with a business management degree. Gator machining and manufacturing was started in 1962 by his grandfather in Independence. It is a machining and fabrication business that works in aerospace, transportation, communication, and the medical industry. It started out in aviation, and their primary partner was Collins Aerospace. They've grown the business noticeably. They have about 300 employees at this time, all in Independence. Landon is currently serving as an executive VP for the company and is in line to become the president when his father steps down. Gator Manufacturing has been working with the University of Northern Iowa's Family Business Center for a long time. And Landon is involved right now in a program that is for next-gen leadership. And it's helping these small family businesses, actually in this case, not so small, 300 employees, keep the family and keep the business in the family and keep the family engaged in the business, and help with these very difficult transitions, intergenerational transitions of that business. It's always difficult to transition a business from the first generation to the second, but it's even much more difficult to transition to the third and to the fourth. And so the Family Business Center at the University of Northern Iowa helps businesses like Geter, as well as many across this state, keep the businesses in the family. And Landon is just a shining example of a young man, grew up in the business, grew up in his community, came to the University of Iowa, Northern Iowa, got a great education, and returned then to the family business, returned to the small town of Independence, and is continuing to grow the family business there for Iowa. The last student I want to introduce you to is actually a student, Amy Hagen-Doom, from Rock Rapids, Iowa. Rock Rapids is about as far from the University of Northern Iowa as you can get. It's in the I think it is the most northwestern school in the entire state. Amy is a sophomore at the University of Northern Iowa, and she graduated from West Lyon High School. She started with us last fall. She's on the dean's list. She's currently carrying a 4.0 GPA. In high school, she was involved in FFA and in music. She's on the Pride of the University of Northern Iowa Marching Band. She's majoring in family services and psychology and has a minor in mental health and a certificate in military psychology. She is a recipient of the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences Alderman Scholarship, which is for students with need and who are worthy and appreciative of the support from the college and from the scholarship. Amy is just doing a phenomenal job and is very interested in returning to the state of Iowa and providing family services here within the state, especially around her hometown. I hope what you can see from this is the way that all of our universities, but in this case, the University of Northern Iowa, is serving students across the state, that the dollars that the state provides have an impact directly on individuals who then take their jobs back in the state of Iowa, go to work in the state of Iowa, and continue to build the state of Iowa. In closing, it is, as we think about the funding that we request from the state, it's easy to talk about dollars to universities and think of that in a very impersonal way, that these are dollars to a university, to a large organization, and lose the faces in this. Those dollars help heat our buildings, they keep the lights on, they help us hire faculty that are really committed, and staff that are committed to these students, to making sure they get the education they need to be able to drive the workforce needs of our state. If you want to see the impact of the dollars that the state spends on the universities, the region universities in the state, look at your neighbors. We're producing the accountants, we're producing the teachers, we're producing the superintendents, the engineers, the doctors, the lawyers, the dentists of this state. Without the investment in the region institutions, that doesn't happen in this state. The state doesn't grow. We don't have the next generation of leaders. It is the investment by the people of Iowa in the universities that provide this state with the next generation of leaders who will keep our state moving forward, who will stay in this state and make a difference. So as you think about the dollars that we're requesting from the state, think about the people in this state, think about your neighbors who received their degrees from the University of Northern Iowa, Iowa State, and the University of Iowa, and the difference they're making here. And recognize that what we're asking for is to support that next generation of leadership, that next generation of people who care about this state, who will build this state, who will build their communities. That's where these dollars go. It isn't to a large impersonal organization. It's to people dedicated to making a difference in this state. Thank you for the work that you do. I know you understand that very, very well, and we greatly appreciate the support that you give the three universities. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Regent Barker?
What is the primary benefit to UNI of the partnerships with community colleges? Is that enrollment, that you're bringing more people in from those by exposing them to UNI early?
So, yeah, we can talk about that. I want to talk about and answer that question. So yes, working with the community colleges, one, we work with them directly, and those 423 students are part of our enrollment. So they do add to the enrollment. And there is tuition dollars that come to us from that. So there is an advantage there. We didn't start this program for that reason, though. What we recognized was the really serious need that these students had and that the state had, with people who had a 2-year degree but had no place to get a 4-year degree, and they wanted one, and in many cases they or their employer needed them to have one. So our driving force was meeting the economic need, meeting the educational need that existed there. The enrollment, the dollars that come with those are a side benefit, right? We've always got to be thinking about meeting the needs of the educational needs of our students and helping them reach their professional goals and their community goals, personal life goals. So there is a benefit in enrollment, there is a benefit to budget, but more importantly, there's a benefit to the state and to those individuals as well.
One other, how do students graduate in 2 years? Is it AP credits that they bring in?
It's a combination of AP credits and then the credits that they earn from community colleges and some of the universities while they're in high school. So the average student coming to us now is bringing in about 20 credits when they come in. And so that's, 30 credits is a full year. So getting done in 3 years is really possible. I did talk to one student last fall who was coming in, and she came in as a quote-unquote freshman, new entering student, but she had junior status because of the credit she was bringing in as AP credits and some of the stuff from high school. But some of these students are just aggressive. So they come in, they've got 30 credits, they should graduate in 3 if they really work at it, but they get very aggressive and they take 18 instead of 15 credits. They come and take classes in the summer. They take advantage of other opportunities so that they can complete early and get into the job market. That's a pretty rare individual that will get that aggressive with the education, but the opportunity is there. It is possible. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank
Thank
you,
you.
President Nook. Enjoyed your report very much. So I'd like to recognize now Brad Berg from the Board of Regents office, who will make comments.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Bates. For the board's consideration today is the operating and other appropriations request for fiscal year 2025. The total $619 million is provided in the docket. And to summarize what we just heard from the presidents, the increases include, or the requests include increases to the general university lines that support higher education and UNI's differential tuition differential initiative. Funding requests also include service to Iowans programs that include Iowa's Rural Healthcare Partnership, the STEM Future Ready Workforce, and the Educators for Iowa initiatives. I'd be happy to respond to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for? Okay. We've had the information in the book, so I think we've all reviewed it and had good presentation from the universities. So a motion and a second are required to approve the operating appropriations request for FY 2025 as outlined in the docket item, and to authorize actions by designated region staff to seek collaboration and partnerships between region institutions and other sectors of state government. Is there a motion?
I would actually like to make a comment first.
Yes, please.
So this morning, we all had the pleasure to sit down and talk with graduate and undergraduate student leaders at our Regent universities. A central point of our conversation was the need for expanded mental health services and the benefits this will bring to our students at our Regent universities. Student leaders also provided us with a unanimous letter imploring us as Regents to support their efforts for expanded mental health resources and funding, and they listed several excellent examples of direct impacts on programming and staffing that having expanded funding could allow at each of their institutions. I know as Regents, we've heard these needs presented consistently in recent years by students and university administrators, highlighting an opportunity we have to address a central issue that touches the lives of many. In light of these ongoing discussions, I would like to make a motion to amend the fiscal year 2025 state appropriations request to include an additional $1 million to support our university's efforts for expanded mental health resources at our 3 Regent universities. And I'd also like to add that our student leaders at our Regent universities would be extremely grateful to be involved in further conversations going forward regarding the specific allocation of this funding and offer their insight as to what specific mental health related resources, programming, or staffing might do the most good at their respective institutions.
Thank you, Regent Crow. On her. Regent Crow has made a motion, and I need a second for
I'll
her
second the
amendment.
motion.
Okay. Regent Rouse has seconded. Any discussion? Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Regent Lindemeyer.
Yes.
Regent Barker.
Yes.
Regent Weiswick.
Yes.
Regent Rouse.
Yes.
Regent Crow.
Yes.
Regent Dunkel is not present. Regent Kramer.
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. Thank you. So now we'll go ahead and we need a motion and a second to required to approve the operating appropriations request for FY 2025 as outlined in the docket item, and to authorize actions by designated Regent staff and to seek collaboration and partnerships between Regent institutions and other sectors of state as amended that we just voted on. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Regent Crow, is there a second?
Second.
Regent Reiswick, thank you. We'll do another roll call vote. Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Barker,
Yes.
Regent Reiswick,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Crow,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel is absent, Regent Kramer,
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. Motion is approved. Thank you. So now I'd like to recognize Board of Regents Associate Chief Academic Officer Jason Pontius.
Good morning, President Pro Tem Bates and members of the board. I'm here today to talk a little bit about a new legislative requirement for the 3 universities. It's called House File 135 and the dashboard that we've created to help address that requirement. So the language for House File 135 asks the Regents to provide data to our students in their first year of their bachelor's program to provide the following information: median income, median student debt, estimated loan payments, kind of the debt to income ratio, and also the percent who go on to earn a master's or a doctoral degree. Now, we're able to do that because of data that's kind of become available over the last couple years, but it includes kind of a conglomeration of 3 different main sources. The wage data we're getting through the PSEO arrangement that we have with the U.S. Census Bureau. The debt data is coming from the Department of Education's college scorecard, and the graduate degrees we're getting by looking at our graduates and then kind of mapping them out 10 years through the National Student Clearinghouse. So here's kind of the prototype dashboard that we have set up. You can see along the top, there'll be a place for people to select between the 3 universities. This is what will be available on the Board of Regents website. The 3 universities will have their own version of this. It'll be identical information, but it'll only be for their university on their website. In addition, you can filter through by field of study, which is not quite at the major level, but it's very, very close, and also look at different kind of graduate cohort years. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the different aspects of this dashboard. This first part will look familiar. Again, this is from the PSEO census data that we have kind of matched, providing the median income 1, 5, and 10 years after graduation. In this case, we're showing majors that fall under accounting and related services within the University of Northern Iowa. Flipping over to Iowa State, we got mechanical engineering. This part is showing the median debt for graduates with a mechanical engineering degree and the estimated monthly loan payment that they have. As you can see, this data is not for everybody. We have, across our regions, about 40% of our graduates have no debt upon graduation. But in this case, the federal loan information has for about 48% of Iowa State graduates. Showing registered nursing at the University of Iowa. We get to see some of the kind of the loan to income ratio, in this case, the percent of monthly income used for making loan payments. And you see that percent goes down over time as the wages go up. And the final part is new. This is data that we had to pull within the Regents, but we are taking a 10-year snapshot of the 2013 grads and looking at how many of them earned a master's or doctoral degree within that 10-year period. This varies quite a bit by major, as you might expect, and it's kind of it's a new take on some looking at who goes on to get advanced degrees. This is something that we're going to be updating every year in order to get new information for, like, so next year we'll add the 2014 graduate cohort and kind of going on and on from there.
Are those percentages for the students who have debt, of the percent of income spent on debt?
No, in that case, that would be for all graduates.
Okay, including those who have no debt?
Yep.
Okay.
Just another question about that same slide. Is those monthly payment amounts based on recommended amounts to pay off the loan, or is that based on actual students and what they tend to do to pay off those loans?
Based on the amount, it's done by the federal government, so it's part of the Department of Ed's estimate, but looking at what their overall debt is, that's their estimate based on kind of current rates for loan repayment. Now, this is all going to get communicated through the universities, and if you've got more specific questions, there's members from the universities that can answer some more about the communications plan. But the short of it is, within the next semester, all new students at our universities are going to be receiving an email or a contact of different sorts that'll have a link to these dashboards, so they'll be able to look at it, particularly within their first year before they may have a major already, but it gives them more information about the major that they're looking for or might decide to declare for. And going forward, we will provide this information at least once a year to new students at our universities. These dashboards are going to be on the Board of Regents website and the university websites, and they'll get updated annually in July. And that's all for my presentation, if you have any questions or other questions.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Jason.
Right, thank you.
Very interesting. I think at this time, we are running a little ahead of schedule, so let's take a 10-minute break and come back by 10:30 or a little bit before. Thanks, Robert. Okay, we're minus JC. Okay, now I would like to recognize University of Iowa Provost Kevin Kriegel, who will introduce, President Wilson's going to
Slight
do the,
shift.
I thought maybe you were going to just be, okay.
No, I'm not sitting here to support him. I'm going to introduce him.
Okay, President Wilson will introduce our presenting faculty.
Thank you, Regent Bates. I'm delighted this morning to introduce to you Dr. Richard Shields. He's the professor and chair of the Department of Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation Sciences within the Carver College of Medicine. This is a top-ranked program and one of the programs that will move into the new academic health sciences building that you saw on our tour yesterday. Dr. Shields' research is on spinal cord injuries and the impact of stress and mobility on people with central nervous system injuries. His work has been funded by the NIH, the Department of Veteran Affairs, and other foundations and organizations. He's a prolific publisher, and I can tell you I've heard him speak before, and no matter what level of exercise you do, he's going to make you feel good. So please welcome Dr. Shields.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and President Bates, thank you for the opportunity and board to be here, and I promise I'm not going to have you running around for this next 15 minutes or anything like that. But I do appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of our work, and I would like you to come away with some, maybe 2 or 3 key concepts. And, it's very easy in 15 to 20 minutes to really dive deep and not come away with some take-home messages. So I'm going to try to address this. First and foremost, I just want to thank you and the leadership of the University of Iowa and the leadership of the College of Medicine, because, the ranking that we enjoy, we're 1/10 of a point away from being #1 out of 270 schools, and that doesn't happen on our watch. That's because of all that's done here. And so, just to formally thank you for all you've done to help this happen in the state of Iowa. I'm also proud to say that 70% of the resident Iowans that attend our program stay in Iowa. And then about 30% of the non-residents stay in Iowa. And that's a factor that we're really proud of. I'm also excited about the health sciences building. Maybe that'll help us push that 1/10 of a point. But we're all very, very excited about the prospects of the new space. So what I want to do in the next 15 minutes is just cover 3 parts to this presentation. And I just want to remind you a little bit, skeletal muscle, a little means a lot. What do I mean by that? Well, skeletal muscle is like an orchestra conductor, and something that we've lost sight of over time is that skeletal muscle is one of the most powerful endocrine organs of the human body. And yet we always equate it, well, it's kind of like the laborer that's doing the work and it allows you to move. But we sometimes lose sight of the importance of that muscle as a gland that releases things directly into the bloodstream. And so when one is active, there's amount of work being done, but it's not exclusive of work being done. It's releasing things that can influence tissues all over the body. So what you see here is just an example of how genes are regulated in the muscle that produce materials that influence every organ system of the human body. And this was, when I was in school, I would say this was the best kept secret because we didn't really know all of this. But the value of repetitive activity of skeletal muscle goes beyond that you're getting a certain amount of work done during that time. So the loss of muscle tissue with age, injury, and disease has really been a focus of mine for many years, actually moving on 42 years that I've been at Iowa. But when I look at a figure like this, here's a cross-section of a muscle, and here it is, this might be from 20 to 60. We give up muscle, and sometimes I think we give it up a little bit too easy. And so this could also be what happens within 6 months if one's had a spinal cord injury. And so imagine a 16-year-old who's injured and now loses this organ. A lot of people say, well, they can't drive it through their nervous system, so it doesn't matter because they can't walk. And nothing could be further from the truth. If it's an important gland, if we lost that much of our liver or our heart or our brain, we would be concerned. And yet sometimes we equate if somebody isn't walking, that they really don't need that skeletal muscle, and we found that not to be true. I want to tell a brief story of a 16-year-old who was paralyzed from the neck down in 1986 from Waverly, Iowa. And you can see here I am in 1986. You can see Father Time has taken its toll on me. I've probably lost a lot of skeletal muscle, but he was injured at C5-6, and I can remember talking to him and thinking, you're gonna live a long life, and I need to prepare you for the health and well-being when you're 50 and 60. And in that sense, when I got him up for the first time, I put him in a manual chair, and he wanted a power chair. He was a 16-year-old, and he wanted to zip around the rehab area, and I convinced his mom and dad, who were very positive at this time, that this isn't the right time for that. We have to invest in your long-term health. And what I was asking him to do is take this much of his muscle mass, this much, which is about 15% that was left, and I asked him to become really an elite athlete, to try to learn to move with what you have. And it took about 12 months of intense training. He came back to see me 37 years later, still in the manual chair. And here he is, getting out of his chair with that little bit of muscle. No triceps allows him to do this, but high-level training afforded him the opportunity to move independently. And now he's approaching 60 years old, and he's had a really healthy lifespan. And it made an important impression on me about, even if you can drive 15% of your muscle, it's important to do it, if you can do it over a lifetime. So a little means a lot if it's done over a long period of time. Of course, then you think about this musculature below the level of the lesion that is just atrophying and kind of going to the wayside. So what we did is we developed this system, and I received a patent for this device. And what it allowed me to do is put people in a standing position with some mechanical struts, and then using a feedback controller, I can drive his skeletal muscle and adjust the resistance just like any of us would exercise with different resistive capabilities. So you can see this individual with quadriplegia standing and then going back to the return position, not with the goal of walking, but with the goal of sustaining a health quality for the 50, 60 years that they're going to be alive. And what we found very quickly was the trained limbs versus untrained. Just look at the bone density. I mean, you didn't need high-end statistics to realize that we had about a 40% on bone, and of course, we were hypertrophying that musculature so it could go back to some of its other duties. And then if I fast forward to a paper we recently put out, and I don't want you to get bogged down with this, but we were able to show that when you repetitively exercise muscle, you get something called an epigenetic tag on certain genes. And what that means is they have a little bit of a memory, which means if you have to not exercise because you get hurt or something like that, it's a little bit of a protective means that allows that muscle to atrophy at a much slower pace. And more importantly, when you go to start up again, you'll recover that muscle much more quickly. And that's where we're looking at training from the standpoint of not a matter of 8 weeks or 12 weeks, but 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And that's where the long-term benefits are being realized. And this was just a paper that showed that things like metabolism, even the immune system, and the link that you know between exercise and COVID and so forth can be realized by measuring some of the gene expression that's happening with certain doses of muscle activity. And again, this just shows that this powerful transcription factor called PGC1 alpha, which is associated with loss or prevention of atrophy with age and things like that, was demethylated, and all that means is it was tagged. And so that means even an individual with spinal cord injury gets a protection through that intervention that I showed you. So part 2 of this presentation, I just want to talk a little bit about skeletal muscle and metabolic disease as it relates to diabetes. Part and parcel, because every one of these folks, if you lose that much muscle, become diabetic. And so muscle is an endocrine organ. It takes up about 70% of ingested sugar that you eat. And if you don't have that reservoir, then clearly you're not going to be in a position to benefit from the endocrine capability of skeletal muscle. So we went down this road for several reasons. I just want to give you a graphic to make the point. If you eat something, you notice at the start of that I have a donut and that's not a Diet Coke, but if that were consumed, you can see what happens to blood glucose. It goes up in about 2 hours, it's back down. And it required a burst of insulin. And insulin is good until it's not. And that's kind of the important message. So you can see their blood glucose gets back to a normal level. But there are others, in order to get that same curve, they have this much insulin released. And that's a precursor for those young Iowans that are pre-diabetic, that are on the verge of increasing insulin receptor sensitivity because they've been bathing it in really high concentrations of insulin because they're not able to move the glucose out of the bloodstream. Why is hyperinsulinemia bad? Let me just say it increases cellular damage and stop right there. This hyperinsulinemia is associated with a lot of disease processes. And so if we look at it, this is what happens during the normal day when we have 3 meals and we're eating well. You get these changes in insulin, these insulin spikes. But for some that are hyperinsulinemic, and I actually made a pretty aggressive skull there to show or remind us that those spikes over a day, a week, a month, a year, decades, starts to take its toll on metabolism. So if you think about it, when you eat a meal, the glucose goes to the brain. That door is opened all the time. The liver, the way you get the glucose into the liver is you need insulin. And so you get a burst of insulin. The way you get it into fat cells, where it stores, is relying on insulin. But what I want to focus on is muscle. And you can see here that skeletal muscle has 2 ways to get glucose out of the bloodstream and into the muscle. And it's very unique and an important feature. Insulin opens the door to get the glucose out of the bloodstream. But if the muscle's churning at the right time, it opens the door to glucose in the absence of insulin. And therefore, less insulin would be necessary. So it's kind of the best kept secret, if you will. And so if you look at this, if we look at an insulin response to a meal, there's no exercise, the blood glucose goes down. But if it's tied to an exercise bout, then it takes a lot less insulin. Now, why is that meaningful? You know, how intense should my exercise be? If I'm looking to exercise after I eat, you know, a lot of us heard, don't swim, you're going to drown if you go out after you eat. You know, that's not saying that you want aggressive exercise, but a 15, 20-minute stroll after you eat really knocks this insulin level way down. And you can see here, when you start to recruit, here's an individual that's cycling very easily, and you see that that might be a walking slow, easy exercise. You could talk and you could sing. That gives you an idea of what the dose of stress would be. That's what you're looking for after a meal. Or for an individual with spinal cord injury, when we drive that musculature, we can knock that insulin need down if it's done as a lifestyle behavior tied to when you put the glucose into your body. So an interesting concept. But notice I'm only recruiting those first muscle fibers. And those are the ones that historically we use as we get older, and we tend to not use those big ones that get recruited at the very end. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you look at the state of Iowa, on the left-hand side, I'm showing you the top 20, if you will, in terms of diabetes prevalence here. Let me see if I can find this pointer. Well, there it is. In any event, you can see, counties' percent of diabetes is down as low as 6%, all the way up in some counties about 13%. And so it's very prevalent, and that doesn't even include pre-diabetes in the state of Iowa. And so we've initiated something called Rural Iowa's Eat and Move. I used to call it Eat and Run, but that scared people off. So it's just Eat and Move program, where if you do a 20-minute walk that you can talk and sing after you eat, look at the decrease in peak insulin in these rural older Iowans that we've tested, and even younger adults have this significant drop. So with that, I want to end the presentation on this part 3 and just talk a little bit about muscle contractions, memory, and cognitive function. That's a really hot topic today as we age. The maintenance of our cognitive function seems to be directly tied to muscle activity. And with that, I'm going to come back to these fibers that I said we don't recruit when you can talk and sing. These are the ones that you don't want to talk and you don't want to sing when you're recruiting. The problem is you can't get those fibers activated unless you recruit all the others. The nervous system works by the size principle. So, and because our joints hurt and things like that as we get older, we tend not to recruit those anymore. And so it turns out that those are the fibers that release lactate. Lactate enters the bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and can directly influence the hippocampus of the brain. So exercise and memory and things like that has always been linked to maybe it's blood flow, but now we know it's linked to direct substrates being introduced into the bloodstream that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So if you take lactate, you can see its influence on nerve cells. It's affecting the nucleus and building some molecules. Now, how would you know you're doing it? Well, you start to feel the burn in muscle, right? If you move muscle and you start to get that burning sensation, you're generating the lactate. The lactate goes into the bloodstream. There's a receptor on the nerve cells, turns on the DNA to produce something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and we can measure that. And so if you take that and you bathe it in the hippocampal network, what happens is it promotes memory and learning by increasing the development of neurotransmitters and synapses. So, when we can't remember something, we start the message here and it doesn't have a good signal all the way back to where we perceive it. And so what happens is BDNF is a stimulant, if you will, for the development of neurotransmitters and synaptic connections. So where my cell phone is, what's the name of this guy talking, or where did we park the car, those connections sometimes are a little bit easier to retrieve. So occasionally feel the burn. I just want to end with these last 2 slides. So here's a young lady that was injured from Columbus Junction that I took care of and did some of this early work with. So just because they don't have a connection to the brain from the nervous system doesn't mean muscle can't cross the blood-brain barrier and help them with a quality of life that allows them to learn and maintain and not have cognitive decline, if you will, later in life, which they have a high probability of having otherwise, just because the amount of muscle they lose. So take-home messages, a little means a lot if you do it every day. And remember my friend Kurt here from 37 years ago, low-intensity activity for metabolism. You don't have to recruit the high. And again, the peak insulin. And then occasional higher intensity muscle contractions for brain, memory, mood, and learning. And that's something that we're starting to realize when we give up those higher end contractions, we're starting to lose some of the signaling that is involved with neuroplasticity. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention and see if there are any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. Shields or comments?
One question.
Regent Kramer?
Thanks. So are we seeing longer life for paraplegics, quadriplegics? Do they have a longer expectancy than they did before? And do some of these treatments really, just help that too?
Yeah, it's a great question, because what happens is when I was able to take that individual with quadriplegia and do 12-month intensive therapy, he was getting what he could voluntarily drive. And then now we have these subsequent therapies that can drive what he can't. But now reimbursement for rehabilitation is 30 days for that same individual. So almost everybody is exclusively going into power chairs, just because it gets them out of it's a DRG-based system, so it gets them out of that setting sooner. So in answer to your question, we have these new therapies that can assist, but in the absence of the system allowing them to train to their highest level, you always want to respect what they can do volitionally and go after that and couple it with what happens in the periphery. So, your question's really a good one, but it's depending on some other variables that are happening at the same time.
Any other comments or questions? Dr. Shields, that was just fascinating. Thank you so
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Board Counsel Amy Clays, who will introduce the trainers for our sexual harassment and discrimination prevention training. We're going to take a break for about 15 minutes until one of the presenters can get here. Okay. Thank you, Amy. I want to go ahead and let you know also that this will be our last item of the day. There will be no closed session. So, just for your information. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and start over if you're all ready. Okay,
We are.
Amy?
Thank you, Regent Bates. I'd like to introduce Tiffany Stevenson Earle and Maria Lucas, who will provide the board and board office staff with annual harassment and discrimination prevention training. Tiffany is the University of Iowa Director of Equity Investigations, and Maria is the university's Deputy General Counsel. So.
Good morning. I apologize for not being here a little bit sooner. I have a broken bone in my foot and then traffic and construction on the way here, so I do apologize. As Amy mentioned, I'm Tiffany Stevenson Earle. I'm the Director of Equity Investigations and the university's ADA Coordinator. As I was walking in, I was looking at some of the chalking on the sidewalk, so I do not envy the job that you have, but I do appreciate you supporting President Wilson and our university. So I'll let my colleague Maria introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Maria Lucas. I'm one of the university's attorneys in the General Counsel office, and happy to be here today to talk. Oh, sorry. I'm Maria Lucas. I'm Deputy General Counsel for the university, one of the university's several attorneys in the General Counsel's office. Tiffany's office and our office work very closely on a number of issues that arise under the policies and the laws and rules that we'll talk about today.
All right, so something that we would like for you to think about as we're providing this training is that as a board member, why should I be concerned about discrimination and harassment? And we hope that by the end of the training today, that you will have a clear answer to that question. But from a practical standpoint, protected class discrimination and harassment violates not only federal and state law, but also and/or Board of Regents policy. So it is very important to know how to respond to such conduct when it is reported in order to protect the workplace and reduce legal risk. And it's also important to know yourself where to report it. We all want to work in an environment, come to work every day where it's harassment-free, we can do our job and not have to worry about what we're walking into. So that's something to keep in mind when you think about that question, why should I be concerned about discrimination and harassment? So a couple things that we will cover today. We'll give you a brief overview of federal and state law. We'll also provide an overview of discrimination and harassment policies that are outlined in the Board of Regents State of Iowa Employee Handbook. So Maria will cover the next several slides that cover federal and state law as well as freedom of expression.
So the first one, these kind of go generally in the order that they were enacted. The Equal Pay Act of 1963, it prohibits wage discrimination on the basis of sex. It's enforced by the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The key about the analysis under that act is, and frankly, under most acts dealing with wage discrimination, is that the jobs must be comparable. They must involve comparable conditions. This particular law is part of FALSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act. The next one is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It prohibits discrimination by recipients of federal funds on the basis of race, color, or national origin. It requires intentional discrimination, but many funding agencies prohibit discriminatory effects as well. This law is enforced by the funding agencies, the Department of Justice, or the judicial system. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. Employees, applicants, and former employees may sue employers for adverse action or hostile work environment under this law. And those are terms that I think we'll get a little further into as this session continues. It also requires reasonable accommodation for religion unless it imposes an undue hardship on the employer to provide that. Employers under Title VII have vicarious liability for the acts of their managers. So it's particularly important that managers understand the impact, the requirements of the law, and that they act accordingly in the workplace. The next one is Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967. It protects employees and applicants who are 40 and older from age discrimination. It applies to the significant aspects of employment, and it's enforced by the Department of Labor Civil Rights Center. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits discrimination by federal funds recipients on the basis of sex, including pregnancy and parental status, sexual orientation, and gender identity. It pertains to educational programs and activities of these federal funds recipients. Regulations promulgated under Title IX impose procedural requirements on the recipients. The Vietnam-era Veterans Readjustment Assistance Act of 1974, it's called VEVRA for short, prohibits discrimination in employment on the basis of United States Vietnam veteran status. It applies to federal contractors and subcontractors. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. It was expanded in the 2023 Pregnant Workers Fairness Act to require reasonable accommodations for pregnancy, childbirth, and related medical conditions unless the employer has an undue hardship in making those accommodations. One that's not up there that I would like to just slip in is Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. This was the first statute to require disability accommodations, and it was passed in 1973. It prohibits disability discrimination by any entity receiving federal assistance, as well as federal contractors and the federal government. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 and the ADA Amendments Act of 2008 also prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. It does that in employment, in the programs and services of public entities, public transportation, public accommodations, and telecommunications. Institutions of higher education must make reasonable accommodations under this law. And emerging case law in this area outside of our circuit, the Eighth Circuit, is beginning to recognize hostile environment claims under the ADA. Title II of the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008 prohibits discrimination in employment and healthcare on the basis of genetic information. It applies to employees and applicants, and it strictly limits disclosure of genetic information.
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
Did you say under Title IX that included gender identity?
Yes.
I didn't think we knew about gender identity back then, but is part of that 1978, or did that get added by Supreme Court or something?
Actually in two ways. One is through the regulations promulgated under it, and which are updated from time to time, as well as guidance that's issued by the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education. Another is the U.S. Supreme Court in the Bostock decision recently. Let's see if I can find my reference to it, but it did rule that sex includes gender identity and sexual orientation, but that was in Title VII. That was a case that was brought under Title VII, but it also addresses gender identity. And that's one thing I wanted to clarify. I've gone through these laws kind of in the order that they appeared on our national scene, and I'll go into some more state laws. But in practice, certainly the way all of us need to comport ourselves in employment and the way that we have to manage both students and employees on our campuses. We don't stop and think about just complying with one law. We have to think about how they all kind of interweave and what then is the end result for, like, what is the rule then that we apply to the conduct in the workplace or in the academic environment. And I think Tiffany is going to get into a little bit more of that. I just want to cover the state laws, and then you'll get some more practical advice. So I've got only three. The Iowa Civil Rights Act of 1965, and this is a very broad one. This is what we call Chapter 216 in the Iowa Code, and a lot of the work in our offices arises out of complaints or reports brought under this law. It prohibits discrimination in employment, housing, credit, public accommodations, and education on the basis of race, color, creed, national origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, pregnancy, physical disability, mental disability, retaliation, and age with respect to employment and credit, familial status in housing and credit, or marital status in credit. Iowa Code Chapter 19B deals with equal employment opportunity, and it includes a section on the prohibition of sexual harassment. It provides equal opportunity in employment to all state employees. It prohibits sexual harassment in the workplace, and it also applies to what we think of as quid pro quo, this for that, harassment, as well as hostile environment harassment. The Iowa Code Chapter 35C provides a veteran's preference. It's a preference in employment, in appointment or employment in state government for applicants of no greater qualification for U.S. military veterans who are U.S. citizens or residents. So if the veteran has equal or greater qualifications, then they must be given preference in those categories. A lot of the work that we do in the area of harassment intersects with the boundaries of freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And so we would like to cover a little bit of freedom of expression as well, just to kind of give the landscape for the types of issues that arise. Of course, we have the United States Constitution, the First Amendment, and we also have our state constitution in Article 1, Section 7, that provides for the freedom of expression. The United States First Amendment applies to state action, which includes action by instrumentalities of the state, which would include all of the universities that are the Regent institutions. Freedom of expression encourages diversity of thought, ideas, and opinions. It fosters the free exchange of ideas. It calls for a prohibition on the suppression of speech. It allows for reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions to be applied in a content and viewpoint neutral way. And that's something that the university relies on for maintaining appropriate rules of decorum in different places, in a classroom, in different social media avenues that instructors may use in their classes. Expressive activity that is not prohibited may be regulated or restricted, again, in a content or viewpoint neutral way. Harassment is not protected by the First Amendment. And so with that, I think Tiffany will tell you more about what harassment is.
Okay, so the next several slides will cover three policies that are in the employee handbook. We'll talk a little bit about protected class harassment, protected class discrimination, and sexual harassment. So policy 8.1, which talks about office decorum, office conduct and decorum, staff are expected to conduct themselves in a courteous and professional manner at all times. Harassment under this policy is prohibited in the workplace. Harassment is a form of discrimination if it is unwelcome and is sufficiently severe or pervasive and objectively offensive so as to substantially interfere with a person's work. Harassment may include any of the things that you see in bullet 3, but also it could include things that are outside of what we have listed here. I think the one other important point that I'll point out is that it has to be based on a protected class, and Maria had mentioned some of those, so just real quickly, race, ethnicity, sex, pregnancy, color, religion, national origin, physical or mental disability, age, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, genetic information, or U.S. veteran status. Even if the actions are directed at specific persons, a hostile environment may be created when the conduct is sufficiently severe or pervasive and objectively offensive so as to substantially interfere with or limit the ability of an individual to do their work. Employees found in violation of this policy, according to the handbook, will be disciplined up to and including termination. 12.1, equal employment opportunity, which is freedom from discrimination based on a protected class, which I just outlined. One of the things I would like to point out is that, as Maria noted, under the federal law, the Americans with Disability Act, which prohibits discrimination in employment on the basis of disability. So the ADA does require employers to provide reasonable accommodations in the workplace to qualified individuals with disabilities so that they can perform the essential functions of their job, unless doing so would create an undue hardship. And so if there are ever questions about accommodations or there is a request for accommodations, those should be made to Executive Director Mark Braun. It is the policy of the Board of Regents to prohibit discrimination against all employees, applicants, and program beneficiaries, which means to provide equal opportunity for advancements of employees, to provide program and employment facilities which are accessible to individuals with disabilities, and to administer its programs in a manner which does not discriminate against a person based on a protected class. Unlawful employee harassment based on protected class, once again, is prohibited. This slide here gives you an idea of all the protected classes that are covered under the policy. And of course, these do align with state and federal law. One of the federal laws that Maria had pointed out was GINA, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. And once again, that prohibits discrimination in employment on the basis of genetic information. So I want to highlight that, even though when I reviewed the handbook, just like our policies, we have all those protected classifications listed there. Genetic information is just one that we always constantly remind when I do these trainings about that protected class information.
Can you give me an example of genetic information, just as an anecdote, how that might be used?
Absolutely. Did you want me to take it, or did you? I can, okay. Yeah, so if, for example, an employer becomes aware of an individual's medical information that contains genetic information, and they use that information to deny them some opportunity, then that would be a violation of federal law. Is that responsive to your question? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So under the discrimination policy, there are resolution options that we wanted to make you aware of for resolving complaints of discrimination. So any person who feels they have been denied employment opportunity, had terms or conditions of employment adversely affected, and has been subjected to discrimination because of their protected class should immediately report the matter to the attention of their supervisor or Executive Director Braun. If the concern or complaint involves the employee's direct supervisor, of course, the employee is encouraged to file a complaint with the next highest supervisor. Based on the policy, every complaint shall be promptly investigated to the extent necessary to determine whether a violation of policy occurred and whether there are remedial measures that are necessary to resolve the situation. Complaints and records relating to complaints are confidential and not subject to disclosure under Iowa's open records law. The last policy that I'll cover real quickly is Policy 13, Sexual Harassment. And per the handbook, the Board of Regents is committed to providing a workplace that is free from sexual harassment. Maria had alluded once again to several federal and state laws. So sexual harassment is a violation of both federal and state statute, which includes Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Iowa Code Section 19B12 and Chapter 216. Sexual harassment based on real or perceived sexual orientation or gender identity is a violation of Iowa Code 216. There are two forms of harassment. There's hostile environment, and then there's quid pro quo. So the first one, hostile environment, is created when an employee is subjected to unwelcome speech or conduct of a sexual or non-sexual nature that is directed at the employee because of his or her sex. Quid pro quo is Latin for this for that, so it's exchanging some opportunity for a sexual favor. That is a prohibited form of sexual harassment. Okay, here are just some examples that include but are not limited to sexual harassment. So it does include verbal, non-verbal, or visual, as well as physical. I won't read through all these, but this is when we do our trainings on our campus, this is a slide that we often use just to make individuals aware that, sexual harassment is just not one form. There are various forms of sexual harassment that are covered under university policy and that would violate federal and state law. So under the sexual harassment policy, there are resolution options. So any employee who believes that they have been subjected to sexual harassment, or individuals who witness or have knowledge of possible sexual harassment, should immediately report the matter to their direct supervisor, the next higher supervisor, their agency director, or other designated agency personnel. Now, alternatively, there are external options as well. So if there is a complaint against a senior agency official and directors, those complaints may be submitted to the Department of Administrative Services or the governor's office without reporting the matter internally to the employee's agency. Once again, under this policy here, every complaint shall be promptly investigated to the extent necessary to determine whether a violation of the policy has occurred and whether remedial measures are warranted. Complaints and records related to complaints are confidential and not subject to disclosure under Iowa's open records law. So what are your responsibilities under this policy here? All Board of Regents employees are required to read the sexual harassment policy and are expected to sign an acknowledgement indicating that the policy was read and fully understood by the employee. The training today will cover the mandatory annual training that you are required to have. On our campus, we have mandatory training as well. We are required to have it every 3 years. Even though I do the training on our campus, I do not train myself, I promise you. I do have to sit in on the online program to make sure that I'm up to speed so that I can provide training to our campus. All Board of Regents employees are responsible for maintaining a work atmosphere free of all forms of sexual harassment. So when it comes to reporting concerns, I didn't create this, but see something, say something. Otherwise, the behavior could go unchecked. All employees are expected to cooperate in an investigation, and failure to do so may result in disciplinary action, which could include up to termination of employment. As it pertains to confidentiality, I talked about that a little bit earlier, but just a reminder that confidentiality should be maintained through any investigatory process, and information only disclosed to those who have a legitimate reason to know about the matter. Retaliation is both a protection and a prohibition. It's a protection in the sense that it protects anyone from bringing a good faith disclosure forward, which includes, for example, filing a complaint. It is a prohibition in the sense that it prohibits someone from retaliating against or taking some materially adverse action against someone because they brought that complaint forward. The Board of Regents will, according to the policy, will work with the appropriate personnel to ensure corrective measures is taken immediately to remedy violations of the policy. Corrective action may include disciplinary action and up to termination of employment. Once again, as noted in the handbook, a manager or supervisor who fails to properly act upon a complaint or who has personal knowledge of a violation of this policy and fails to take appropriate action shall be subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination of employment. And just by way of some additional resources, the Iowa Civil Rights Commission, which is the state agency where employment discrimination complaints can be filed. There's also the federal agency, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And I also listed our offices, or at least my office, which I'm in the Office of Institutional Equity, where we have both our Title IX and Gender Equity Unit, and then I supervise and direct our equity investigations and ADA compliance. Did I do that? Oh, sorry. I thought one of the slides had some kind of, yeah, so that's the information that we wanted to share with you today. Are there any questions that you have for us?
Are there any questions or comments? So I believe you said, I do have one, that every 3 years at the university you do that. So what about a new employee coming in? Do they automatically have, when they first come?
Yes, great question. So I know for faculty, new faculty, actually in August I presented that training during their new faculty orientation. Okay. So I believe the policy requires them to have it within the first 6 months of employment. Okay. But our provost office does a great job of ensuring that new employees attend that orientation. Now, even though we have the instructor-led in-person training, we also have an online program that is an option as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you, and thank you for presenting early. I know that we put you on the docket at a certain time, and you graciously came early since we were ahead. So.
No, I apologize.
No,
my colleague here said, hey, we need to get there by 10:30. I didn't realize maneuvering Iowa City that there was roads that are blocked off, and I thought, wow, okay, let me go around this way. And I always tell my kids, don't speed, but to get here, I was speeding, so.
Well,
so I do apologize.
No apology. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the board? Okay, hearing none, this meeting of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, is adjourned.